Hello, everybody, whether you are physically in Glasgow or at COP26, or whether, like me, you are joining remotely, welcome to a very special event. My name is Jonathan Charles. I'm the Managing Director of Communications at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Today is another big day at COP26. Countries are being asked to come forward, of course, with ambitious emissions reduction targets. And that, of course, is with the aim of reaching net zero by the middle of the century. Not an easy target to reach. All of us can only rise to the challenges of climate change by working together. At COP26, we have to turn our ambitions into action to deliver on our climate goals much faster. Well, today we're launching publicly the High Impact Partnership on Climate Action, HIPCA. It is the EBRD's dedicated partnership for fighting the impact of climate change and environmental damage, a multi-donor fund. For the next few minutes, we're going to be hearing from some special guests. We'll be hearing from the EBRD President, Odile Renaud-Basso, Mark Bowman, the EBRD Vice President for Policy and Partnerships, the President of the Swiss Confederation, Guy Parmelin, James Cleverly, the Minister for Middle East and North Africa at the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, Finland's Minister for Development Cooperation and International Trade, Wil Skinnaari, from the Netherlands, Sandor Gastra, Director General, Climate and Energy at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate. From Austria, Harold Weiglein, Director General for Economic Policy, Financial Markets and Customs Duties at the Ministry of Finance. And from Taipei, China, joining us a little later on, Taiwan ICDF, Alex Shi, the Deputy Secretary General, will be joining us in Glasgow. We are playing our own little game of musical chairs, by the way, during the event, as there is a limit to just how many people are allowed to be physically present in the auditorium in Glasgow due to COVID restrictions. So please bear with us during all the shuffling around. Without further ado, though, let's get going. Let's start hearing from our speakers. Odile, let me turn to you first of all as the President of the EBRD. We've certainly shown that climate action can go hand in hand with economic growth and transition. The EBRD is rising to the challenge, some pretty strong goals to meet. We have ambitions and an approach to climate change.
Thank you, Jonathan. Honorable Prince, President, Ministers, dear colleagues, and for everybody who listen to us, we are facing unprecedented challenges. And here at the COP26, it's very clear that the international community is looking for strong commitment, leadership, and meaningful collaboration. In this context, the EBRD is absolutely delighted to launch today with our long-standing partners, the High Impact Partnership on Climate Action, HIPCA. This is the first multi-donor partnership dedicated to tackling climate change and environmental degradation. This new instrument responds to calls from the international community to work through novel partnerships to crowd in financing and capital market to drive climate solutions. The bank values very much the opportunity to collaborate with our partners who are present here today to advance our respective strategies and priorities on climate change, environmental degradation, and sustainable development alongside gender and economic inclusion. The bank, EBRD, works in 38 economies in Europe, Asia, and Africa at all income levels, facing significant environmental and climate challenge. And there is an urgent need for us to support the economies to transition to sustainable, low-emission, climate-resilient, and environmentally friendly development pathways. The countries, they have to reduce their energy intensity and environmental impact of the activity into their economies and improve the resilience to climate change. But they are facing headwinds. Emerging markets are considered too risky for international investors. There is a lack of transparency in data, inadequate investment climate and regulatory framework, and lack of access to appropriate finance and affordability. These are key obstacles. So that's why using donor finance in a disciplined manner is an integral part of our business model, and it's a key enabler to address these challenges. That's why we need the support of our partners more than ever, and we must act now and together. You know that the bank has set for itself a very ambitious objective, 50% of our full investment to be green by 2025, and all our investment to be fully Paris aligned by the end of 2022. And this HIPCA initiative will help us delivering on this objective. It is a critically needed and innovative vehicle for building synergies and aggregating ambitions for the benefits of our country of operation. So I am very proud to announce this partnership today, and thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Odile, thank you very much indeed for launching this. I know as well you're staying for a little while, but you have to leave at some stage before the end in order to go to another event, but thank you very much. Now, COP26, where we are now, 5 years on from COP21 in Paris, the international community is looking, of course, for strong commitments and leadership, as Odile mentioned in her speech there. Let's turn to Mark Bowman now, the EBRD's newly appointed Vice President for Policy and Partnership. And Mark, it's all in your job title, really. For us to achieve our ambitious goals as the EBRD, we need those novel and bold partnerships.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, and President, Ministers, distinguished guests. It's a real pleasure to be here today alongside our long-standing partners at the launch of the High Impact Partnership on Climate Action, HIPCA. We all know that to tackle climate change and to address the rapid rate of environmental degradation, we need novel and bold partnerships. And we also understand the challenge of mobilizing the trillions in private and public sector investment and finance which will be required to achieve global net zero. The High Impact Partnership on Climate Action is the EBRD's response to this call for action. It's the EBRD's first multi-donor partnership dedicated to tackling climate change and environmental degradation. Now, COP26, as we know, has 4 main goals linked to mitigation, adaptation, mobilization, and collaboration, and HIPCA will directly support all 4 of those goals. Very briefly about the partnership, HIPCA will work across 8 core thematic areas and 5 cross-cutting themes, targeting both climate change mitigation and adaptation, as well as environmental degradation in all 38 economies in which the EBRD operates. The partnership builds on the bank's unique business model, which combines EBRD commercial financing with concessional co-financing, policy engagement, and technical assistance. And HIPCA has been designed so that it can accommodate any form of donor contribution. It's also been designed with a lean governance approach, which enables flexibility and speed, allowing it to address urgent needs and changing priorities. Now, we spent nearly 2 years working with some of our partners to design this partnership, and it's fantastic to be here today and to see how it's been turned from an initial idea into a new form of collaboration and partnership. Today, we would very much like to thank particularly our colleagues and friends from the Netherlands, from Finland, from the UK, from Canada, from Taiwan, ICDF, from Austria and Switzerland, to thank them for their hard work, their trust, their patience and their perseverance. And of course, special thanks to those partners with whom we've already signed agreements, and we're looking forward to signing more in the weeks to come. It goes without saying that we would not be here today without your continued support and collaboration. So we very much look forward to the next stage of our partnership on this. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's hear from some of those partners that you've just been outlining there. We have, of course, right from the start said this is about partnership and it was designed in partnership. Let's hear from our very first special guest now. We're very honoured to have with us Guy Parmelin, the President of the Swiss Confederation.
Thank you, the EBRD President and Vice President, the Ministers, the Directors, ladies and gentlemen. Climate change has serious consequences for people and the environment. It particularly affects the poorest segments of the world's population. By 2030, 100 million people are likely to fall back into extreme poverty due to the effects of climate change, and by 2050, 143 million people could become climate migrants. For these reasons, climate change is defined as one of the main objectives of Switzerland's international cooperation strategy for the period 2021-2024. In the design, implementation and monitoring of its international cooperation activities, Switzerland will systematically take into account climate-related risks as well as mitigation and adaptation measures. By 2024, Switzerland aims to contribute around 400 million Swiss francs per year to climate action, which represents about 15% of its international cooperation resources. In addition, Switzerland is committed to strengthening the mobilization of the private sector for climate-friendly investments and the climate sustainability of urban environments in developing countries. In order to do so, Switzerland wants to promote partnerships, including multilateral ones. The creation of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, first multi-donor fund exclusively dedicated to climate change and environment, comes at a critical time. The High Impact Partnership for Climate Action, HIPCA Fund, is an excellent opportunity for Switzerland and other donor countries to engage in bringing to market well-structured and bankable projects to achieve a greater climate impact in the private and public sectors. EBRD is a key partner for Switzerland in the promotion of private sector development and the strengthening of municipal infrastructure. In particular, in Central Asia, EBRD and Switzerland have a long-standing cooperation to combine bank investments with Swiss technical assistance. Addressing the challenges imposed by climate change presents a new area for cooperation. EBRD is one of the most advanced multilateral development banks, MDBs, in the Paris alignment process. With respect to climate finance, EBRD is also among the most ambitious MDB, with the objective of increasing green financing to over 50% of its annual business volume by 2025. Switzerland encouraged the EBRD to consider a more proactive approach on policy support to promote low-carbon pathways in its countries of operations. In this context, Switzerland is eager to work hand in hand with the EBRD within the framework of the HIPCA Fund to boost policy support and technical assistance in critical areas. Switzerland's support will focus on urban development and green finance, and I would like to briefly explain why. Cities are on the front lines of global climate change. They account for more than 70% of global CO2 emissions. Nevertheless, cities are also drivers of growth and centers of innovation. Switzerland is willing to contribute to the HIPCA Fund to improve developing countries' urban planning, to facilitate the connectivity within urban areas, and to strengthen sustainable energy systems. This support should significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions in cities and foster sustainable economic activity. Green financial systems are also critical to achieve a greater climate impact. Switzerland is willing to work jointly with the EBRD and HIPCA Fund to provide green finance opportunities to small and medium enterprise SMEs, such as green credit lines, mortgages, and bonds to scale up climate investments. Switzerland is convinced that multilateral development banks like EBRD have a great role to play to move the climate agenda forward. And Switzerland is well advanced in the process of approving a contribution to the HIPCA Fund. It is looking forward to working closely and efficiently with EBRD over the next years to scale up climate finance and accelerate climate action and impact. Thank you for your attention.
President, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know you've got a very busy day today. I think you have to leave pretty imminently to go off to another engagement, but thank you for taking the time to be with us. Now, the UK government, as we know, is the host of this crucial COP26. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has said securing a brighter future for our children and future generations requires countries to take urgent action at home and abroad to turn the tide on climate change. We are now joined by the Right Honourable James Cleverly MP, Minister for Middle East and North Africa at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO.
Thank you, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This summit is the last best chance we have to commit to urgent action on climate change, the existential threat of our world today. The impacts are already very real for millions of people, including across the Middle East and North Africa. When I met experts and campaigners from across the region at a round table recently, they described in vivid detail the impact that they're experiencing. The region is already between 1 and 1.5 degrees warmer than pre-industrial times. Devastating wildfires ripped across Algeria, Libya, Tunisia and Lebanon just a few months ago. Sea temperatures are rising. Droughts and heat waves are becoming more and more common. And this region is the most water-stressed region in the world, with huge demands on increasingly limited supplies. That's why we must take mitigation action now to keep 1.5 degrees limit within reach and to prevent large swathes of the region, including major cities, becoming uninhabitable. We must help countries who are vulnerable to climate change to adapt and adapt to the mounting impacts and also to strengthen their own infrastructure. And we must unlock investment from the public and private sectors whilst pushing for innovation and green solutions. As COP President, the UK is leading from the front on this, and I'm glad to be here today to support and celebrate HIPCA as a project. It's a fine example of what we can do when we bring together governments and donors and the private sector. And it demonstrates the importance of a holistic approach, driving investments in tandem with bold policy solutions. I'm therefore delighted to tell you that the UK government will make a £50 million contribution over the next 5 years to HIPCA for work in the Middle East and North Africa. This will mobilise private sector funds to support the work across North Africa and into the Middle East, including in Morocco, in Algeria, in Egypt, Tunisia, Jordan, and in Lebanon. There are so many opportunities here. This region has abundant potential when it comes to renewable and low carbon energy. And through HIPCA, we can support transformations. This could help the steel and cement industries to reduce their carbon footprint, or support farmers to put food production on a sustainable footing through nature-based solutions such as irrigation projects, or it could make buildings more resilient to the new wilder weather that we are experiencing, or indeed making older ones more energy efficient, or crucially, putting safe, clean water supplies in place. I'm excited about the potential for HIPCA to transform lives, to transform the landscape and the built environment right across the region. And this is part of a wide range of actions that the UK is taking. We've already doubled our international climate finance over the next 5 years from £5.8 billion to £11.6 billion, underscoring our commitment to this vital work right across the globe. So let's follow this through. We're excited to work with the EBRD and other donors to drive more action and more investment. Together, we can build back better, deliver a greener, more secure and more prosperous future for the Middle East and North Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister, and a particularly big thank you actually for the announcement you've just made about your contribution, the UK's contribution to HIPCA. It's very well received, very much appreciated, so a double thank you for taking the time to come here today. Now, let's hear from Finland and Minister Skinnari about how the country is stepping up its efforts on climate action and joining this partnership.
Dear friends, it is a great pleasure to greet all of you here today. Finland aims to be climate neutral by 2035. We also aim to be the first fossil-free welfare economy. This is an ambitious goal and requires a lot of work. We will achieve our target by reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 65% and by strengthening our carbon sinks. Our responsible climate policy does not end there. We have increased our international climate funding by 80% during this current government term. We are also providing over 500 million euros of loan and investment-based financing to developing countries between 2020 and 2023. At least 75% of these funds are channeled into green investments in developing countries. Bringing private sector solutions to solve global development and climate challenges is one of my priorities. Around 2/3 of our climate finance is loan and investment-based financing. This funding is used to leverage a significant amount of additional private finance. The model helps to multiply the climate impact of our development cooperation assistance. Finland is a long-standing partner of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. As a new form of collaboration, we are very pleased to be entering into a partnership with EBRD and others under the High Impact Partnership for Climate Action. I'm pleased to announce that, subject to government approval, Finland plans to invest 39.7 million euros in the partnership and provide a 2 million euro grant contribution. HIPCA boldly combines many of our own goals in fighting climate change and environmental degradation. Together, we will unlock market conditions, mobilize more financing, and engage the private sector. In line with Finland's priority to support African countries, 80% of our investment will be directed to Africa. We congratulate the EBRD for launching HIPCA and welcome other actors to join this innovative partnership to fight climate change. Thank you so much.
Minister Skunari, thank you very much indeed, and many thanks again to Finland for your contribution to HIPCA. It is, as I said earlier about previous contribution, very much appreciated. Now, let's turn to the Netherlands. To combat climate change, the government of the Netherlands wants to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 49% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels, and a 95% reduction by 2050. The Netherlands was also one of the very first partners to join our high impact partnership on climate action, HIPCA. We're therefore very happy now to hear from Mr. Gastra, Director General, Climate and Energy, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate of the Netherlands. Sandor Gastra, over to you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, happy to be here today because of two reasons. The Netherlands has been very keen to develop this high-impact partnership on climate action with EBRD, to develop a strong pipeline of climate action in which our focus is on the southern and eastern Mediterranean region, and to do that through a multi-donor platform that allows us to strategically cooperate on climate between EBRD and donor countries. And secondly, because EBRD keeps underlining the crucial leadership that multilateral development banks can offer to support developing countries and emerging economies on accelerating climate action. As our friends from the EBRD suggested, I will address briefly four main goals: adaptation, mitigation, mobilizing finance, and collaboration. First, on adaptation. This is getting too little attention when we look at all climate initiatives. And that's why last week's Climate Finance Delivery Plan has increasing finance for adaptation as one of its guiding principles. And that is also why adaptation accounts for half of Dutch public climate finance. We also need private adaptation finance. We know it's not easy, so I'm pleased that EBRD will address the challenges. Please keep in mind that adaptation actions have a high return on investment. This has been shown by the Global Commission on Adaptation. For every dollar invested in climate resilient infrastructure, $6 can be saved. But let's not forget mitigation and its investment potential either. The EBRD region faces significant challenges to reduce fossil fuel dependency. At the same time, the region has so many opportunities to harness zero carbon technologies, renewable energy, low carbon cities and green hydrogen. The trick is to translate NDCs and net zero pledges to transformational action on the ground, to real investment projects that will unlock the low carbon economy. And among the first HIPCA projects, we see utility scale solar in Tunisia and sustainable transport in Egypt, and this is a truly promising start. Thirdly, in mobilizing finance, we expect EBRD to show leadership, to mobilize its balance sheet as much as it can for climate finance. And we need to focus on crowding in private sector finance that can help support climate smart solutions for vulnerable communities. Finally, collaboration. Like Mark said earlier, as we go further in this new climate economy, we will face many challenges and difficulties. So we must work together to deliver. And we strongly believe that this broad partnership approach is the way to go. To conclude, EBRD is a highly relevant player in our focus region. EBRD is well placed for a lead role to bring regional financial flows in line with low carbon and climate resilient development pathways. And our cabinet appreciates the challenges that EBRD faces in mainstreaming climate targets in its country dialogues and lending operations. And we will be happy to support wherever we can. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gastra, thank you very much indeed for that early support as well for HIPCA as it was starting to be set up. Let's turn to Austria now. I'm delighted that we're joined by Harold Weiglein. And Harold, as Mark mentioned earlier, we're very happy as well that you've signed a contribution agreement with Austria only last week to be part of HIPCA. That is fantastic. Can you share your thoughts with us on what you think are the biggest challenges in the countries of operations of the EBRD so that we can successfully implement a green energy transition and become at the same time more competitive? Where do you see HIPCA as well fitting into all of this?
Well, Jonathan, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. But before I go into answering it, let me first thank the EBRD and our co-donors, the Netherlands, Taiwan, Finland, the UK and Switzerland, for this initiative, which we think is very important and very timely. Now, what are the biggest challenges in the countries of operation? I've had many discussions with people from Central and Eastern Europe mostly, and they tend to have a very nostalgic view of industrialization, especially meaning smokestack industries, brown industries, creating tangible goods. And for them, that's the equivalent of prosperity and jobs. So these people tend to be skeptical about whether the green transition or green investments can do the same thing as industrialization has done for them in the past. What we need to do is to be convincing in telling them that there can be something like a green industrialization that is capable of creating jobs and prosperity, but is at the same time also good for the climate. And that has to be an economic argument, an argument based on business logic, and it has to be convincing. That also means what will not work is, to treat the green transition or greenery in general like a religion, where you're either a follower or true believer without understanding what it means, or you are a heretic. And it would also not work if we tell those people that in order to save the climate, they have to remain poor. That will not work. And here, I think that's precisely the point where the competitive advantage of the EBRD and of HIPCA lies. Because first of all, the EBRD has had a very long experience with green investment. It's had a green balance sheet long before most other IFIs or MDBs were starting to invest in green projects. But at the same time, the EBRD has always had that private sector angle and the philosophy of a commercial bank. So I think it's really well placed to explain why some things are necessary for the climate, but why they also make sense from a business perspective and from a commercial perspective. And that's the unique competitive advantage we see with the EBRD. That's why Austria is very happy to contribute to HIPCA. We're contributing 5 million euros, and it's not what the UK contributes, but we're much smaller than the UK. Forgive us for that. But again, this is a very important initiative, and we're very happy to be part of it.
Harold, thank you very much. And I can assure you your contribution is very much valued as well. And we're really glad that you're part of HIPCA. But thank you as well for joining us from Vienna today. Now, Taipei China's International Cooperation and Development Fund, Taiwan ICDF, has been a donor to the EBRD for many years and has now also joined our High Impact Partnership on Climate Action, HIPCA. We're delighted to have been joined in Glasgow by Alex Shi, the Deputy Secretary General of the International Cooperation and Development Fund. That was part of our musical chairs that you didn't see going on behind the scenes. Alex Shi, congratulations. Glad you made it into the auditorium. And thank you very much for being supportive of HIPCA.
Okay. President Odia, Vice President Bowman, President Pamelin, Minister Skinari, Director General Ginaro, Director General Wegelin, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here today on behalf of the Taiwan ICDF to celebrate the launch of HIPCA, which is a critical vehicle of the EBRD to realize its green commitment. I would also like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to exchange views on our partnership with the EBRD and how it has led the way towards its multi-actor platform to facilitate ambitious climate action. Starting from 1996, for more than 20 years, the Taiwan ICDF and the EBRD have forged a strong and long-standing cooperation relationship in areas of small and medium enterprise development, agribusiness, and the green transition, contributing to private sector development and economic transition in many of the EBRD's countries of operation. The partnership has helped achieve sustainable and prosperous growth of the region. We all know that climate change and its disastrous impact is the world's greatest existing threat. With the same mindset to accelerate a climate resilient, low emission development pathway, in 2011, the Taiwan ICDF partnered with EBRD to initiate the Green Energy Special Fund. The fund has successfully catalyzed 8 carbon-saving projects by developing an innovative mechanism to link levels of concessionality to carbon emissions reductions. In addition, in 2016, the Taiwan ICDF increased its participation in the EBRD's flagship Green Economy Transition product, the Green Economy Financing Facility, and has helped to boost green financing in several countries. Recognizing the need for a comprehensive climate resolution, the Taiwan ICDF acted promptly and concluded the first contribution agreement for the new high-impact partnership for climate action HIPCA with the EBRD earlier this year, confirming our dedication and strong support to scale up climate action. Being the first partnership framework dedicated for joint climate action, establishment of HIPCA has achieved green milestone. It aligned with all the COP goals, and in particular, the goal to unleash the trillions in private and public sector finance required to secure global net zero. HIPCA has demonstrated how international financial institutions and the government can, by working collectively, accelerate action to tackle the climate crisis. Furthermore, the partnership comes at a critical time when the world is gearing up for post-pandemic recovery and places countries in a better position to build a more resilient and greener future. This is a period that demands multi-stakeholders' effort to achieve this common goal. We are glad to stand at the forefront with EBRD and pioneer this breakthrough initiative and look forward to the partnership engaging more participation from the public and private sectors in the near term. I believe with such concerted efforts together, we can continue to tackle climate changes with great confidence and more collectively. Congratulations on the success launch of HIPCA. Thank you for your listening.
Alex Sheath, thank you very much indeed for joining us in Glasgow, and also, of course, a big thank you for your very long-term support of EBRD Green Goals and indeed support for HIPCA. Well, it's been a pleasure to hear from so many of our distinguished partners, so many guests, but sadly, we're coming to the end of this event now. Let me turn back to you, Mark Bowman, as Vice President of Policy and Partnerships at the EBRD, for a few closing thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, and it's really just left to me to say that this has been a very exciting event, and it's left to me really just to say thank you to everybody for participating, to thank our distinguished guests from the Netherlands, from Finland, from the UK, Taiwan, ICDF, Austria and Switzerland, to thank everyone for being here today, for their messages of support, and of course, most importantly, for the financial contributions that have been pledged. Today represents the launch of HIPCA, and we're now ready for business. And I'm very pleased to say that behind the scenes, there's been lots of work going on developing the first cohort of projects. These projects will tap into the funding that we've secured so far to support green cities, renewable energy, low carbon transport, and climate resilient agriculture in countries such as Egypt, Tunisia, and Ukraine. So watch this space. We look forward to keeping you all updated. We look forward to being able to demonstrate the very tangible benefits of this partnership. And of course, this is just the start of a journey. We also look forward to welcoming other donors, both from the public and private sectors, to join in this partnership. Finally, before ending, allow me also to thank Camilla Otto, Director of the EBRD's donor team, and her colleagues Alexis Frank and Guy Henley, who have been behind this entire initiative, and for the tireless work they have done working with partners to develop and now finally launch HIPCA. Thank you very much.
Mark, and thank you to everyone for joining as a guest to speak about HIPCA, and particularly thank you as well to the audience for watching. If you want to find out more about HIPCA, you can do that on ebrd.com, the EBRD's website, and also follow what the EBRD is doing in the green space on our social media channels. You'll find a lot there on exactly the sort of projects that HIPCA will be supporting, and the many other projects that we do. Thank you again. We wish you all, if you're there, a very successful COP26. Goodbye.